Friends laughed at Amy when she finished high school and went to study to be a veterinarian. They all went into law, economics, and modeling. But Amy paid no attention to the mockery. She has loved animals since childhood and wanted to help them. After graduation, she got a job in a small veterinary clinic. At meetings with her friends, they continued to joke about it. "With your appearance in mind," a friend said, "you would have achieved great success in any business. You would have a fancy car and an apartment, and you wouldn't have to remove fleas." Amy smiled, joked, and continued to spend almost all of her money on pet food and help for stray dogs and cats. Once, she saw a girl on the street who was looking scared at her little dog. Her dog fell on her side and whined pitifully. Amy approached the girl and offered help. They went to the clinic, did an examination, and found out that the dog had gotten poisoned by eating something on the street. Amy prescribed medication, and a week later, a happy girl came to her and said that her dog had recovered. The girl's name was Catherine, and she was rich. She liked Amy and her professionalism so much that she wanted to help her. Amy replied that she didn't need anything, but if the girl insisted, she could donate some money for food for stray animals. Catherine proposed creating a small, permanent animal shelter and a fund to which anyone who cares about animals could transfer money. Amy liked the idea. However, after a while, they realized that people didn't really donate much, and they could not help all the animals. Catherine had to fly on a business trip to another country, and she asked Amy to look after her dog. And at that moment, Amy got an idea. What if we make a good hotel for animals, where wealthy people can leave their pets during their travels? For animals, flying is stressful, and in the pet hotel, they would receive all the best until the owners return. Catherine liked the idea so much that a day later she sent a business plan to Amy and even found a building for a hotel. It was a success. People praised the idea, and they even had to add extra building since there was not enough space for everyone. The hotel started to make profit, and there was enough money to expand the charity shelter for homeless animals and equip it with a free veterinary clinic. Amy was talked about in the press. She was interviewed, and many wealthy people wanted to help. After a while, branches of hotels and free animal shelters began to open throughout the country, where they lived out their days and were not euthanized. And many have found new owners. The friends who had laughed at the girl were now proud of such a friend. And they were very happy when they got into the newspapers with Amy. They all asked what the secret of Amy's success was. Do what you must, and most importantly, not for money, but for pleasure. And then what is destined will happen, and success will come. Help people find their success in life. Share this video. Sir, shame on you. The dog has health problems. And you're also depriving her of her freedom of movement with your leash, Michael said gloomily to the stranger. In fact, Michael has long wanted to have a puppy and dreamed of playing tags with him and building a kennel for him. But the boy's parents were against it, saying that their son was not yet ready for such a responsibility. That is why Michael was there that day at the dog stadium. He comes here every day and observes funny dogs and their games. But this time, he was outraged by the behavior of the owner of the lame dog, who didn't remove its collar even during the game. So he decided to approach the stranger and make a remark to him. However, the owner of the dog smiled in response to the reproach and unhooked the leash from the animal. At the same moment, the dog began to shake and cuddle up to the owner. It's strange. What was she afraid of? Why is she in no hurry to run and jump like other dogs? The boy asked the stranger in surprise. That's when the stranger told the story. He found Archie on the road. He was hit by a car and he lay there whining and crying, hoping someone would help him. He immediately took him to the vet and he went to the address indicated on the dog's collar so that his owner would pick him up from the clinic. The door was opened for him by a sullen woman who said that she had never had a dog and that her dress was obviously mistaken, despite the fact that behind her was a dog bone and a leash. The man understood everything and decided not to leave the dog in trouble. Well, let's be friends. He held out his paw to his smaller friend. The dog extended his paw in response and they drove home together. Since then, they've always been together. Archie turned out to be a very cheerful and active dog, but what happened to him didn't go unnoticed. As soon as he left the house without a leash, he immediately got scared and began to shake. That is why Archie is always buckled on the street. He's calm like that, and only that way he can feel all the colors and joys of life. Michael listened with delight and surprise to the stranger's story and then shook his hand. He said that he had a wonderful dog and he was certainly very lucky with him, and then he returned to the bench and thought. But everyone has their own happiness. What's punishment to one, to someone else, is freedom. What is sadness to one, happiness to another. On that day, Michael realized that a dog is a big responsibility, for which he's not yet ready. Early in the morning, Nicole walked to work in her usual way. And every day she saw an old beggar woman near the bus stop. She begged for money from passers-by, but everyone just passed by. Nicole never paid attention to her either. Once, Nicole slipped and fell on the icy pavement, hitting her back hard. She couldn't get up because the pain was just awful. "Help!" Nicole shouted, but no one responded to her request. There was not a single soul nearby. Then Nicole tried to reach for her purse herself to call an ambulance, but she couldn't move. She was already crying with despair and gave up hope that anyone could help her. But suddenly, a beggar appeared next to her. "I can't move. Please take my phone from my bag and call an ambulance," Nicole asked. The beggar immediately complied with her request, and in a few minutes, the doctors arrived. Nicole didn't want to be alone, so she asked the beggar to go with her to the hospital. The beggar agreed, since she couldn't leave Nicole alone in trouble. At the hospital, Nicole was given a disappointing diagnosis. It turned out that she hit so hard that she broke her spine. The doctor said that Nicole will not be able to get back on her feet anytime soon. She burst into tears when doctors announced that. She didn't even have relatives that could take care of her. That thought made Nicole unbearably sad. A little later, a beggar woman was allowed in her ward. She was holding a small bag of fruits in her hand. She spent her last pennies on them. Nicole was surprised to see her. She thought that the woman had long forgotten about the stranger and left. The beggar asked what had happened, and Nicole told her everything, without holding back her tears. Then the beggar woman told her that she would not leave her alone in trouble and would help. Nicole was amazed because she never helped this woman and always walked by. Seeing her surprise, the beggar only smiled and told her story. My name is Barbara. Recently, my house burned down and all my belongings and documents are gone. I tried to get a job, but no one wanted to take me. I didn't have a family, so I had to live on the street and beg. I know what it means to be alone with your misfortune, said Barbara, and quickly wiped away her tears. Nicole felt sorry for the old woman, and she felt ashamed that she was passing by her all the time. She apologized to Barbara and suggested that she move in with her. Barbara refused at first, but then agreed. After that, she took care of Nicole for a long time and looked after the house while she was in the hospital. Since then, they've become a real family for each other. And Nicole learned a valuable lesson for herself. Never pass by someone else's trouble. Never forget how important helping other people can be. People who want to lose weight sometimes do things that could cost them their health or even their lives. In this video, we'll look at harmful ways to lose weight. Monotonous diet. Diets when people eat only apples or only rice are unhealthy and short-lived. Maybe once in a lifetime you can get away with such an experiment. In other cases, you'll get nausea, vitamin deficiency, and health problems. This also includes diets that exclude some kind of food group. The ketogenic diet also doesn't end well. Low-calorie diets. If you skip meals, then the weight decreases, but the body doesn't receive vitamins. Vitamins are needed every day. We get sick without them. Vitamins are distributed in foods we eat. Therefore, without nutrition, there will be no vitamins. If you try hard with the low-calorie diet, you can bring yourself to scurvy or some kind of paralysis. Losing weight doing intense physical activity. An intense exercise is a load with a heart rate of 70 to 90% of the total capacity. Ordinary people shouldn't do this more than 2-3 days a week. In addition to the fact that from such a load, there's a small chance of getting a heart attack, it also burns muscles. Muscles are heavy and many may enjoy losing weight while burning muscle, but muscles have insulin receptors of the complex carbohydrate glycogen. Therefore, without muscle, the body is less able to cope with the digestion of carbohydrates, and they turn into fat. Therefore, different diets require moderate physical activity to maintain muscle mass. Losing weight by sweating. There are two options. The first is when professional athletes cut weight before the competition. They're more likely to cope with a short episode of dehydration. The second is various wraps, wetsuits, and the film that you wrap yourself in to sweat. This is stupidity. You can overheat. You can lose salt with sweat, without which heart problems begin. You can also thicken the blood so that blood clots begin to form in it. We immediately get several ways to die. Excess water. The other extreme is when drinking a lot of water. If you drink enough water with a low salt content, then the concentration of sodium in the blood will drop sharply. From this, at best, convulsions will begin. At worst, there will be cerebral edema from which you can die. This happens to people in the desert when after dehydration, they drink water in buckets. Laxative abuse. This is the same as profuse sweating. Salts will come out with diarrhea. Fun fact, if you try very hard, you can die from diarrhea in a day. Take care of yourself and lose weight the proper way. Subscribe to our channel. It'll be interesting. There were 3 brothers in a family. The family lost their father early, and the boys were raised by their mother. As time passed, soon the boys grew up. All 3 became successful and rich. And their mother grew old and lived in a small house. One day, sons gathered and decided to thank their mother for everything she had done for them. Each of them wanted to make his own special gift. The eldest son said, "I bought my mother a huge, beautiful house and hired servants to help her. I want her to live her senior years without being in need of anything." The middle son then said, "And I bought for our mother a fancy, expensive car, and she will have a driver. I want her to live her senior year knowing what it's like to move around the city in comfort." The younger one told about the gift. "I beat you all. You know that mom likes to read the Bible? But her vision is getting worse, so I decided to buy her a parrot. They taught the parrot to learn the Bible for 20 years in a row, and now it knows it by heart. Once you say the chapter number, it starts quoting the scripture right away." The brothers agreed it was a good gift. Time has come. Sons came to see their mother and started asking about gifts. The mother replied to her eldest, "Thank you, son, for the present. But why do I need a house with so many rooms? Because I'll live in one, and all other rooms are empty." Then she turned to the middle one, "And thank you, son, for your present. But where do I go in my old age? And my eyes can hardly see. I can't even admire the view from the window anymore." Finally, the mother turned to Junior. "Thank you, son. You knew what I needed. The chicken soup you sent me was great." Not every gift is truly valuable, even if it was paid in gold. After all, any luxury is dimmed in comparison with the gift that was made with care and love. Cody walks down the street decorated for Christmas. Expensive clothes on display and jewelry attracted buyers, and Cody knew she could afford any gift. She lives in a wealthy family. Since childhood, parents have spoiled her with expensive gifts. Cody always loved shopping before Christmas, but this year her mood was ruined. The girl got a bad grade for the semester. Buying new things did not bring her any pleasure. Then she decided to just go home. And on the way, she noticed two kids in poor clothes at a window with sweets behind it. The boy frantically counted his change and wiped away his tears. Cody asked what was the matter, and the boy said he did not have enough money for a gingerbread for his little sister. Cody quickly bought some gingerbread for them. The boy was beaming with happiness and said, "Thank you. It's a miracle on Christmas. You're like a real Santa. You're probably very happy to make other people happy." Cody was a little shocked by what he said. She hesitated for a few seconds and then answered with a slight sadness, "You know what? I actually gave up on Christmas miracle. This year, I'm not in a festive mood and most likely won't be in one." The boy looked at her, smiled broadly, and said, "Why are you waiting for a miracle if you're doing miracles yourself?" He laughed, waved his hand to her, and left with his sister. Cody considered his words. She pictured the sincere smile of those kids, and she immediately felt warmth in her chest. The girl liked doing good. She was going to make this holiday happy for other people as well, and Cody went to the city shelter. She had enough money to get some toys to orphans. She entered the orphanage and unexpectedly for everyone, took all the children's letters with their wishes. The entire staff was surprised at such a bold act. Some did not even believe that the girl would come back with gifts. But a few hours later, the girl returned with a whole cart of toys. She became a real hero, and some children thought she was Santa's helper. Cody was happy to see how joyful children were. That day, she spent all her money helping those in need. It was the best Christmas of her life. But the most wonderful thing was the meeting with the boy and his sister. They met again at the same pastry shop. The kids handed her a cute homemade postcard with pictures. They thanked her for the gingerbread, and the boy hugged Cody. The girl burst into tears with emotions. "Thank you. Because of you, I began to believe in the Christmas miracle again," said Cody, looking at the boy with a smile. Sometimes you have to create a miracle yourself in order to find happiness. In the office of a large company, work was in full swing as always. Gerald, a young employee, went about his usual routine. But soon everyone was asked to take a break from work to greet the new employee. A middle-aged man was led into the office. His name was Nick. Gerald found him a little odd. The newcomer nodded his head modestly in greeting. It turned out he was deaf. This surprised many employees. Gerald often saw Nick ask his boss questions in the general chat. "It won't last even a couple of months," Gerald told his colleague, looking at the newcomer, although he himself sometimes helped the newcomer to solve some issues. Gerald's predictions were fully justified. They worked for a large international company. Communication and speed of work played the biggest role here. The company was also going through hard times. This year, deadlines for the delivery of projects were disrupted. Employees weren't keeping up. In such a situation, the deaf Nick seemed helpless because there was no direct dialogue with him. Occasionally, Gerald and his colleagues would talk about Nick during their noisy lunch break. Nick preferred to eat and work at his table at the same time. A month later, the company had an emergency. The deadlines were on fire, and the boss summoned everyone to a meeting. He inquired his employees about the reason for this failure. In response, he heard only excuses. No one could offer a way out of the situation. However, Nick wrote a few words on a piece of paper and passed it on to his boss. The boss smiled and nodded his head. After that, Nick immediately left the office and began to work. After the meeting, all employees of the department gathered to discuss the work plan. Gerald noticed that Nick had decided not to even listen to them. The man sat and worked, drinking coffee. In the following days of intense work, the general chat of the company was bursting with questions to the authorities. In this chaos, Gerald noticed only a few short messages from Nick. He was very surprised at how Nick grasps everything on the fly. Even though he was deaf, it didn't stop him from working hard. Gerald was even glad that Nick was able to adapt here and work. Soon, everyone in Gerald's department began to notice that the work was getting better. Of course, everyone began to praise themselves. Everyone except Nick. Then the boss came to them to make an announcement. He announced the best employee of the department who was getting promoted, and it was Nick. While you were chatting, arguing, asking me endless questions, Nick was just doing his job, the boss said proudly. Gerald was glad that Nick was able to show himself and surprise everyone. Gerald understood one simple truth. It doesn't matter what people say, but what they do.